Hey YouTube people, today I want to do a video about something that can be very frustrating for users. And that is sometimes you want to upgrade your device to a larger storage format, but the way that the partitions are set up make it very difficult. For example, say you buy a machine and it has a 512 gigabyte SSD, but you want to drop in something like a 2 terabyte SSD like this. Well, that's exactly what I'm going to be doing today. I have in-house the X16, and it comes with a 1 terabyte SSD, but I want to upgrade it to a 2 terabyte SSD. And you think it'd be pretty straightforward, and you can do a clean install, and that's usually what people end up doing. But if you want to keep your existing setup and then still be able to migrate from the 1 terabyte drive to the 2 terabyte drive, or from a 256 to a 1 terabyte or whatever, how do you do that without losing your data? That's what we're going to explore in this video. Okay, so the first thing we're going to look at is this is my source X16 device, my laptop here, and it has a 1 terabyte drive. Now let's look at the way the partitions are formatted on the computer. So we'll right click this PC, show more options, and then manage. And then we'll go on the left hand side and we'll look at disk management. And you can see that the free space in the drive, there's actually a lot of partitions on this drive. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So the first one, right there. The second one is our C drive, which has most of the space available on it. And then there's these small little 750, 22 gigabyte, 200 megabyte partitions that are just kind of in the way. Now, if the C drive was at the end of the drive, you could literally clone the drive and then extend that partition. But because there's drives in the way of that, we got to get a little bit more creative. So what you're going to need for the purposes of doing this is as follows. You're going to need, of course, your new drive. You're going to need a USB thumb drive. And what we're going to do with this is load up two different installations. One Clonezilla, and the other one we're going to load up with another Unix install called Gparted. And I'm going to walk you through each of these steps like from nuts and bolts. So keep that in mind. So it's easiest if you have two thumb drives, but you can kind of swap your installs. So get a thumb drive. A couple thumb drives are $10 at Walmart. So get some thumb drives. Then you can have them in the future. You can label it and say, this is my Clonezilla thumb drive and this is my Gparted thumb drive, and you're good to go for future projects. The last thing you'll need is something like this, some sort of SSD. You can use a portable hard drive, anything that's going to work for you that has enough space to store your, this has to be have as much free space as the space you're using on your source drive. So keep that in mind. So let's go ahead and get started. I'm going to take you over to this laptop and I'll show you how to install both Clonezilla and Gparted, and then we'll go from there. Okay, so here's the three pieces of software you're going to use. I use UNetBootin just to get my, basically what this does is lets you take an ISO of your Clonezilla or Gparted and put it on a thumb drive so you can do like a live CD situation. So let's go ahead and download the Windows version. We'll say keep. And then we're going to do two other downloads. We'll go to Clonezilla, and Clonezilla here, clonezilla.org. You go to the download sections. I'm going to use this alternate stable that's Ubuntu based. So I'm going to click that. And you want the AMD 64. You want file type ISO. And auto repository is fine. We'll click download. and then it will start downloading after a second. There we go. And then Gparted, same deal. You're going to go to gparted.org to their download section. And here we are right here, the AMD 64 ISO. You do this, you would use AMD 64 even on an Intel machine, just so you know. That's just kind of how it's named. So it's 64-bit. So we'll click that ISO. Download will start shortly. Okay, so I have my two ISOs of Gparted and Clonezilla, and I have UNet boot in. So I'm going to go ahead and open UNet boot in, and I have one of my thumb drives installed. And this is the one that I want to install Gparted onto. So let me go ahead and close the browser just so I don't confuse you at all. So you can see I have the thumb drive. It's got nothing on it. It's the D drive, and that's just one of those thumb drives that I had. I just plugged into the computer. That's the D drive there. So we're all set up. We'll hit select. Okay, so I can choose Gparted live right there, and I'll click OK, and it's going to my D drive, and I'm just going to hit click OK here. And pretty easy. It's just going to go through and set up that thumb drive exactly how it needs to be for booting. Okay, if you ever get this, it's because you already have a thumb drive that has been used like this. So we're just going to say yes to all. Okay, so that one's done. I'm going to click exit. And then because I'm not going to be using Gparted exactly right now, I'm going to eject it. And now this thumb drive is set up with Gparted. I'm good to go. Now I'm going to put my second thumb drive in that I'm going to use for Clonezilla. And like I say, I'm walking you through like every single little step on this, so you know how to do it. So we're going to go ahead and open the UNet boot in again, and we're going to choose the Clonezilla ISO this time. There it is. And we're going to go ahead and write that. Okay, so I'm going to click exit, and then I'm going to eject it. And now I've got my two thumb drives, one with Gparted, one with Clonezilla. Good to go. So now let's talk a little bit about what you need to do to prepare your source computer. So the first thing you need to do is make sure that there is no encryption on the drive. Otherwise, you're going to have a bad time and it's not going to work. So if we go into this PC and click on the machine, if this says turn off BitLocker, you want to, right now I don't have BitLocker enabled, so you don't want that enabled. Right now it looks like I don't have that, so that's good. If yours BitLocker is enabled, you're going to have to disable it. So the other thing I'm going to check is sometimes in settings, if we use the search, sometimes there's disk encryption options there. On Surface devices, they have that sometimes. Okay, so yeah, if you're using Windows 10, that you can also look here in System and Security. So BitLocker is when you have Windows Pro. Sometimes this might just say device encryption. You want to make sure it is turned off. It is if it's on, say set to off, and it will take. You'll actually see a progress bar as it decrypts your entire drive. It looks like we're okay on this machine. So that's the step one, though. Make sure you do not have encryption enabled. But now what we're going to do is we're going to learn how we can let Clonezilla boot. And to do that, we're going to have to disable secure boot. So the first step that we're going to do is actually make an image of our source SSD and put it on our little thumb drive here. So right now what I'm going to do, and I'm going to show you my desk area. So I have the machine, and I'm going to take the Clonezilla drive, and I'm going to plug it in. And then I'm also going to take my storage drive and I'm going to plug that in as well. Okay, so we've got Clonezilla and the storage drive ready to go. Okay, so now we're going to go into the BIOS. There's lots of ways to do this, but I'm going to show you the most system agnostic way to do this, and that's through Windows. So here we go. You're in your settings. You're going to go to System, and then you're going to look for Recovery. And you're going to choose Advanced Startup, and we'll click Restart Now. So now the machine is rebooting into a little startup menu, and this will allow us to go into the BIOS itself. Okay, so this is the recovery menu, and what you're going to do is choose Troubleshoot, and then Advanced Options, and then you're going to go UEFI firmware settings. Now, a lot of machines like this one in particular, you just tap F2 while it's booting, and it's going to go into that menu. And definitely this screen is going to look different depending what computer you have, but this menu setup is very common. And what we're going to do is we're going to go into the advanced mode. And you can see my mouse there. I'm going to click into security. And what I'm looking for is the secure boot option. So secure boot is enabled. I'm going to go ahead and disable it. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to click F10 to save. And now what I've done is I am ready to boot from my Clonezilla drive. So when you're in this menu, you can actually go to the boot menu by pressing F8. This will be different on your machine, but on this one, you're going to hit F8. And I'm going to choose boot from this UEFI, and that is my Clonezilla. And okay, so now we are ready to go into Clonezilla and do what we need to do. Clonezilla Live, that first option is just fine. And you can see sometimes it takes a minute for that to load up. And here we are. So I'm going to go English, keep the keyboard layout, and there's an option that says Start Clonezilla. And right here, there is device image and device. I want to work with the device image because I want to copy from my SSD in the machine and copy it onto the storage drive as an image. So I'll choose device image, and then I'm going to choose a local device. And now it's saying plug in your storage device. So if you hadn't plugged it in yet, you'll want to plug in your storage device now. I'll hit enter to continue. And here it is right here, my Extreme SSD SanDisk, which is what I had. That looks like I hit Control C to exit the window. Okay, so now it's asking where do you want to save your images is essentially what this is saying. And we're going to do it here on our SanDisk drive. I've got a bunch of open space, 465 gigabyte there. So I'm going to choose that. And I'm going to skip checking and repairing. And there's nothing on this drive, so we're currently selected in just the root, which is fine. Okay, so we can do beginner mode, but I'm going to go ahead and, yeah, let's do beginner mode. It should be fine. So we want to save the entire disk. We don't want to save just a single partition. We want the entire disk. So we'll save disk. And then this lets you call it something. I'm going to call this X16 original SSD, because I'm saving the original SSD as a file that I can then load up on the new SSD. So I'll say okay. It doesn't like when you do spaces. So X16 dash stock is what I'll do. There we go. So the disk that we're going to use as source. So there's a 1 terabyte Micron 3400. That is the drive in the system here, and that is definitely what I want to be source. So I'm going to say okay. And there's a compression option. We'll just use the standard zip compression. That should be fine. And we're going to skip disk checking. And we're going to skip checking the saved image as well, because the way I'm going to do it, we'll have a backup even if it doesn't work. I mean, we'll be okay. Do you want to encrypt? We don't want to encrypt. That's just if you want to be super secure about what you're doing, but we don't need to do that here. Okay, what do we want to do when it's done? Well, what we want to do when it's done is shut down, because once we've saved it, we're going to put the new SSD in this machine. So we'll power off when we're done. Okay, so now it's created kind of like these commands of what it actually is. So, but we don't need to type that. We're just going to click enter. And here we go. So it says ROG Flow X16, we're going to take all these NVMe partitions and we're going to save them into your storage device as this partition. Do you want to continue? Yes, we do. Okay, let's do it. Now, this should be actually very quick, because not only are we reading off a fast NVMe drive, we are also writing to a fast stock drive here as well. So you can see it's going through each partition, and this is the large one. So you can see this is going to take about 7 minutes, but to copy your entire hard drive, 1 terabyte hard drive, in 7 minutes. Now, granted, it's not full. It has a lot of free space on it. Looks like it's using 105 gigabytes. So this will take just a minute. Okay, so that first big partition finished. Cloned successfully. Still has a few more little partitions to run through. Okay, and the image is just wrapping up, and it's literally going to turn the computer off here. And we have cloned the internal hard drive to this device that we can restore on a new one. Okay, computer is off, and now I'm going to actually be opening up this machine and swapping the SSD. Okay, so here's the new drive that's going to be going in it, but let's go ahead and open this guy up. Okay, so pretty straightforward so far. Obviously, you have to make the judgment on your own PC how you need to open it up and get your device ready. And the size of SSD, all those things just depend on your own machine. So for me, I'm going to be pulling this guy out. Okay, so I'm going to take this little heat spreader off. Kind of a sticker here. And I'm going to put it on this one. That way we get the same cooling benefits. Keep track of your screws. And there we go. The 2 terabyte is installed. Our old 1 terabyte we're going to hang on to just as backup. I also, if you remove the battery, depends on your model of laptop, but be sure to plug that back in. Okay, and now we can close her back up. Okay, we got that done. Now, what we're going to do is we're going to plug it back in. And we are going to put the Clonezilla thumb drive in. And we're also going to put the image that we copied off the old SSD, plug that back in. And we're going to boot back into the Clonezilla interface. Now keep in mind, after having unplugged the battery, you may run into the machine taking a minute to respond. It might be training the RAM, which is what I believe it's doing right now. Okay, Clonezilla again. We're going to log in. So yeah, don't get scared if it doesn't boot in the first few seconds. Sometimes you just got to be patient. Okay, so now this is the step where you copy from the image to the new drive. So start Clonezilla. We're still going to work with device to image. Where the image will be saved or read from is still on here. And I see my device, so here we go. We're going to use the SanDisk as the source. We're going to skip check. Okay, so we are going to use that same root as the source. We can see the image in there though. We'll go ahead and choose beginner. And what we're going to do is restore disk. And choose the image you're going to restore from. It's the one we just saved. So I'm going to say okay. And where's your target? Well, this is my new 2 terabyte drive. And that's definitely my target, so I'm going to say OK. And no, I'm not going to I'm going to skip the checking. And when I'm done, I am going to tell it to shut down. OK, and press enter to continue. Are you sure you want to continue? Yes. And it says, hey, for reals, you want me to do this? Because I'm going to erase everything, but it's a brand new drive, so I don't need anything on it. So here we go. It's just making sure you really want to do what it says. So now the same partition structure and data that existed on the original drive is now going to be copied from that image and restored on the new drive. Now the problem is going to be that the new drive, it's only going to have partitions set up that are 1 terabyte big. You can see that there, it's only restoring a 1 terabyte partition. So when we go to expand the partition, that's where we're going to need to use Gparted. So we'll let this run to completion, and then I will get back on here with you guys. Okay, so the restore finishes. Okay. So there's one part where it wanted to resize a partition. I just said cancel to that, just in case the bootloader's on it. And now the system shuts down. So at this point, what I'm going to do is actually unplug the storage drive and unplug the Clonezilla drive and plug in the Gparted drive. There's Gparted, and we'll turn the computer back on. And I'm going to tap my F8 code so I can boot from that Gparted drive. Oh, it's going straight into Windows before I could do that, so we'll boot to it in just a second. But at the very least, you can see that we are now on the 2 terabyte drive. However, okay, so once you have Gparted, you can see the structure of the 2 terabyte drive with a bunch of space at the end, but you have these partitions in the way of being able to expand this one. So what you want to do is you want to click on that first partition, and you're going to go to the menu and say resize move. And you can actually drag it all the way to the end. And then you're going to click on the next partition, and you're going to do the same thing. Resize move. And you're going to drag it all the way to the end. And then there's that final partition right there. Same procedure. Drag it all the way to the end. Now, there is space directly after your main C partition. What this is going to let you do is expand it out using Windows in a later step. So once we've done that, it looks like this, but you actually have to apply the changes. So you actually have to click this green button that says Apply All Operations. Are you sure you want to apply? We're going to say yes, apply. And this can take a minute. And it says all operations are successfully completed, and we can go ahead and close. And at this point, we can actually shut the computer down and go back into Windows. Okay, and now Windows is back up and running, and let's take a look and see what our drive looks like. So you can see it still looks like a 1 terabyte, but now when we right click on this computer and go to Manage and go to Disk Management, you have free space after this partition. So now we can right click it and click Extend Volume. And boom, now our C drive has 1.839. And if I refresh this screen, you can see we now have the full 2 terabytes available on the drive. So we did it. We got to keep all of our settings, applications. We have a backup on our external hard drive of the image of the stock SSD, and we also have the stock SSD itself as a backup as well. So we've got 2 backups, and we have the new system running perfectly on a 2 terabyte drive, and we kept all our data. So hopefully that helps show you how to do that on your own notebook or computer or whatever you're working with. And if you like this video, hit subscribe, and we'll see you on the next one.